In the Kherson region on the morning of October 19, anti-aircraft gunners shot down a Russian attack helicopter Ka-52. According to Ukrinform, the public relations service of the Southern Aviation Command announced this on Facebook. On October 19, at about 10:30 in the Berislav district of the Kherson region, a unit of the Kherson Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade of the UK Aviation Command shot down an attack helicopter of the invaders Ka-52, the report says in the report. As Ukrinform reported, on the night of October 15, anti-aircraft missile units of the UK Aviation Command shot down a Shahed 136 kamikaze drone and a Russian attack helicopter in southern Ukraine. The armed forces of Ukraine shot down 223 Shahed 136 drones in 36 days. According to Ukrinform, the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced this on Telegram. As of October 19, since the first case of the destruction of an Iranian-made kamikaze drone, Shahed 136, on the territory of Ukraine, September 13, Kupiansk, 223 UAVs of this type have been destroyed by air defense systems of the Air Force. Forces and other components of the Defense Forces of Ukraine, the statement said. Message: anti-aircraft missile units, fighter aircraft, self-propelled anti-aircraft installations, mobile fire groups of manpads, anti-aircraft installations, heavy machine guns and other weapons such as Garand-2 are involved in the destruction of the Shahed 136 loitering ammunition, which the invaders mark. As Ukrinform reported, air defense destroys 85% of the Shahed 136 drones that Russia launches to strike at the territory of Ukraine. On the eve of winter, Germany handed over another package of aid to Ukraine. This is stated in the relevant list, updated as of October 19 on the website of the German government, Ukrinform reports. Thus, 5 more armored evacuation vehicles were transferred to Ukraine, in addition to the same number earlier, 7 heavy and medium bridge systems, 167,000 cartridges for firearms, 100 tents, now there are 200 of them in the armed forces of Ukraine, 183 generators, 116,000 winter jackets, 80,000 winter pants, 240,000 winter hats. Of the newly promised, 5 engineering armored vehicles, 35 8x8 trucks and 4,000 sleeping bags. At the same time, the Iris-T emergency system is still not listed as a transferred emergency system, as the German press wrote last week and Ukrainian officials spoke about. As reported, the day before, German Defense Minister Carsten Lambrecht announced the delivery of a large assistance package to Ukraine by the end of the year, which will include, in particular, Dingo armored vehicles, bridge-laying tanks, additional Panzerhaubitze 2000 howitzers, additional MLRS, anti-drone systems. In the Kiev region, law enforcement officers captured an enemy reconnaissance drone. As reported by Ukrinform, this was announced on Telegram by the head of the police of the Kiev region Andriy Nebitov. An enemy reconnaissance drone was detained by our police in the Vyshgorod region. The drone was discovered by a local resident in a forest area. What exactly was filmed by this Orlan-10 type aircraft will be established by the relevant law enforcement agencies, Nebitov said. As Ukrinform reported, air defense destroys 85% of the Shahed 136 drones that Russia launches to strike at the territory of Ukraine. Over the past day, the armed forces of Ukraine liquidated another 430 Russian invaders. In total, the enemy's combat losses from February 24 to October 19 amounted to about 66,280 people. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced this on Facebook, Ukrinform reports. The total combat losses of the enemy from February 24 to October 19 amounted to liquidated about 66,280, plus 430, personnel, the message says. In total, since February 24, Russia has lost 2,554, plus 6, tanks in Ukraine, 5,235, plus 16, armored combat vehicles, 1,637, plus 15, artillery systems, and 372, plus 0, MLRS. Air defense systems 189, plus 1, units, aircraft, 269, plus 1, units, helicopters, 242, plus 0, units, tactical UAVs, 1286, plus 10, cruise missiles, 323, +5, ships/boats, 16, +0, units, cars and tankers, 3,999, +14, units, special equipment, 146, +2. It is noted that the enemy suffered the greatest losses in the Bakhmut and Kramatorsk directions. The data is being specified. At night, the enemy attacked Zaporizhzhia with S-300 missiles. Oleksandr Starik, chairman of the Zaporizhzhia OVA, announced this on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. At night, the enemy attacked a critical infrastructure facility in one of the villages of the Zaporizhzhia region. The occupier used S-300 missiles, he wrote. According to the OVA, a fire broke out at the facility, which was quickly extinguished by rescuers. There were no casualties. As Ukrinform reported, on the night of October 18, the enemy launched an airstrike on Zaporizhzhia using kamikaze drones. The Russian military over the past day, October 18, fired at 9 regions of Ukraine. According to Ukrinform, this is stated in the summary information of the regional military administrations on the situation in the regions of Ukraine as of 9 o'clock on Wednesday, October 19. In the Chernihiv region over the past day, the Russians shelled the Novgorod-Seversky and Koryakov regions. The enemy fired 3 mortars and dropped ammunition from an unmanned aerial vehicle. The aggressor carried out one of the attacks at night from mortars, in the area of the village of Kranovka, Snovskaya station of the Koryakovsky district. Information about losses or destruction is now being specified. In the Zaporizhzhia region at night, the enemy attacked a critical infrastructure facility in one of the villages of the Zaporizhzhia region. The aggressor used S-300 missiles. A fire broke out at the facility, which was quickly extinguished by rescuers. There were no casualties. Details about the consequences are being specified. In the Sumy region at night, the enemy fired at the village of Seredinobudskaya. 12 hits were recorded. First, no consequences. Detailed information is being specified. During the past day, the Russians fired on the settlements of the Sumy region. The aggressor fired on civilians and civilian objects from mortars and artillery. 2 dead and 1 wounded as a result of the shelling of the village in the village of Unikovskaya. Also over the past day, the enemy fired artillery at the village of Khotin and mortar shelled at the village of Novoslobodsk. A total of 64 hits. In the Dnipropetrovsk region at night, the enemy struck at the Krivoy Rog and Nikopol regions. In the Krivoy Rog region, rockets hit an energy infrastructure facility. The settlements of the Apostolovsky, Zelenodolsky, Shirokovskaya and Sofievskaya communities and one of the districts of Krivoy Rog were left without electricity. Also, several pumping stations of local water utilities are de-energized. There are interruptions in water supply. The energy companies are fixing everything. In Krivoy Rog, a 2-story house was damaged as a result of enemy shelling. Initially, no people were hurt. In the Nikopol area, the enemy fired at the settlements of Marganets and Krasnogrigorievsk from grads, hurricanes, and heavy artillery. The people are unharmed. Damaged houses. In the Kharkiv region, over the past day, Russian troops have been shelling along the line of confrontation and the border with the Russian Federation, the territory of the Chugovsky, Kharkov and Kupiansky districts. In particular, Volchansky Khutor, Volokovka, Gaidish, Krasnoy, Ogortsovo, Staritsa, Strelekia and Kotno were under the blows of the aggressor. In the Kharkiv region, 2 people were hospitalized with injuries per day. Demoning continues on the liberated territory of the region. During the day, pyrotechnics of the State Emergency Service neutralized 709 explosive objects. Over the past day in the Lugansk region, 16 areas of concentration of weapons and military equipment, a stronghold, as well as 8 positions of enemy anti-aircraft missile systems have been confirmed over the past day. In particular, the fighters of the missile forces and artillery attacked 4 command posts, 5 areas of concentration of manpower, weapons and military equipment, and 2 air defense facilities. The gunners also destroyed 1 artillery facility, 2 ammunition depots, an electronic warfare station and other enemy military facilities. On October 18, the armed forces of Ukraine repelled several enemy attacks in the Luhansk region. In particular, towards Belagorovka. The Russians continue to shell the liberated settlements, turning them into ashes. So, yesterday they opened fire on Stelmahovka in the Kupiansk direction, Grakovka, Nadia, Belagorovka and Novogorovka in the Lyman direction. In the Bakhmut direction, the enemy fired from tanks and artillery along the entire line of collision. In general, Russian troops fired at the positions of the defenders of the Luhansk region 13 times from artillery and mortars. In the Donetsk region at night, the enemy opened fire on the village of Paraskovevka near Soldar. One 5-story building and 3 private houses in the center of the village were damaged. There are no injured civilians. In the Donetsk region at night and in the morning, shelling along the front line, Avdiivka, Mariinka, Krasnogorovka, Bakhmut. During the day, 4 people were killed in the region, 12 civilians were injured. At night, the enemy attacked the Nikolaev region twice with the help of Shahid-136 kamikaze drones. 13 kamikaze drones were shot down on the territory of the region. The village of Berezhnegovatskaya remains under constant shelling. Surroundings of 3 settlements were shelled at night. Information about the victims and damage is being specified. Also last night there were shelling near the villages of the Shirokovskaya community. Hits were recorded on agricultural land. There are no casualties or damage. In the Kherson region, active hostilities continue. Territorial arrays along the line of hostilities and in the rear are systematically subjected to shelling, missile strikes and attacks by enemy drones. According to the Operational Command South, the enemy is actively defending and trying to hold the occupied lines. It continues to inflict fire damage on Ukrainian troops using aircraft, heavy artillery, MLRS and mortars. The sabotage and reconnaissance group of the enemy tried to bypass the positions of the Ukrainian military in the Novaya Kamenka area. In battle, she suffered losses and retreated. The armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 2 ammunition depots in the Berislav region. In the area of Berislav, a unit of the Kherson anti-aircraft missile brigade of the Yug Aviation Command shot down a Russian Su-25 attack aircraft. Relatively calm, without shelling, the night passed in other regions of Ukraine. As Ukrinform reported, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Russian military does not abandon attempts to conduct offensive operations in the Bakhmut and Avdiivka directions. In the Donetsk region, Russian troops shelled 18 settlements in a day. There are casualties. According to Ukrinform, this was reported by the National Police of Ukraine. Russian troops attacked the cities of Kurakovo, Avdiivka, Toretsk, Ugledar, Bakhmut, Chasov Yar, the villages of Velikaya Novoselka, Severnoy, New York, the villages of Novokrenka, Karlovka, Bogoyevlenka, Solovyevo, Katarinovka, Vremievka, Kleshchivka, Kremovo, Voskresenka. From aviation, MLRS, Grad, missile systems, artillery and mortars. The occupiers destroyed and damaged 37 civilian facilities, 18 residential buildings, a thermal power plant, a mine building, a sanitary and epidemiological station, a farm, outbuildings, garages and cars. In Kurakovo, Russian troops attacked a critical infrastructure facility. There are dead and wounded civilians. Artillery shelling does not subside in the Bakhmut direction. In particular, in Kurdiamovka, Seversk and Bakhmut, people died from enemy hits. Infrastructure facilities and private houses were damaged, the statement said. The police and the SBU opened criminal proceedings under Article 438, violation of the laws and customs of war, of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. With the help of the police, another 196 people were evacuated. Since the beginning of the mandatory evacuation, more than 24,700 people, including 3,908 children, 1,420 people with disabilities. As Ukrinform reported, over the past day, on October 18, Russian servicemen killed 4 residents of the Donetsk region and wounded 12 more. The enemy army shells Orkhov in the Zaporozhye region. The shelling continues for 7 to 14 hours. This was announced by the vice mayor of Orkhov Svetlana Mandrik on Facebook, Ukrinform reports. Pray for the city of Orkhov. Shelling of the city for 7 to 14 hours. Ork bastards razed the city to the ground. The humanitarian headquarters stopped its work. There is no light, water, communication. Everything is broken, she said. Wrote. According to Mandrich, public utilities cannot do their job. She also posted a photo of the aftermath of one of the attacks. The head of the Zaporizhzhia District Military District, Oleksandr Starik, said on Telegram that 8 civilians were injured as a result of the night shelling of Orkhov, Zaporizhzhia region. They were hospitalized. As a result of enemy shelling of Orikhovo tonight, 8 civilians were injured. People have injuries of varying severity, all are hospitalized, Starik wrote. Earlier it was reported that the security situation in the city worsened. The humanitarian headquarters stopped its work. In one day, more than 320 arrivals were counted in the city. In the deoccupied village of Dvyrchensky, Kharkiv region, Russian troops fired on ambulances, as a result of which employees of the State Emergency Service were injured. The Center for Emergency Medical Care and Disaster Medicine of the Kharkiv Regional Council reported this on Facebook, Ukrinform reports. The enemy continues to terrorize the civilian population of the deoccupied territories of the Kharkiv region with rocket attacks. As a result of today's shelling of the Dvyrchensky district, 3 specialized EMP vehicles were damaged. Employees of the center's structural unit, fortunately, were not injured, but our colleagues, employees of the State Emergency Service, were injured. As reported, according to the OVA, in the Kharkiv region over the past day, 2 people were injured as a result of shelling, in the Chugovsky and Kupiansky districts. Russia is now in a difficult situation, and President Vladimir Putin can no longer do anything to reverse the dynamics of the war in Ukraine. This opinion was expressed by General of the U.S. Armed Forces David Petraeus during an online discussion of the Kiev Security Forum founded by the Arseniy Yatsenyuk Open Ukraine Foundation, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. The American general noted that Ukraine, as a result of general mobilization, organizational efforts, military training and defense assistance from the United States and partners, now has a much greater military power than Russia has. This gave the Ukrainian army the opportunity to liberate most of the territory of the Kharkiv region, advance somewhat in the Luhansk region and methodically continue offensive operations to liberate Kherson and other territories west of the Dnieper. Russia is now in a difficult situation. There is nothing more Putin can do to reverse this dynamic. The referenda came to nothing. An attempt to annex 4 regions in the end does not matter, and we see that Ukraine is liberating these territories, Petraeus said. He noted that even the partial mobilization that was announced in Russia ended up with more people leaving the country than came to the military registration and enlistment offices. Those who end up donning Russian military uniforms receive minimal training and are virtually unarmed, he said. It does mean that tens of thousands of additional armed soldiers could appear on the battlefield. But the Ukrainian forces are now so much more powerful, so much more combat-ready than the Russians, that they will continue to liberate their territories, the U.S. Army general is convinced. He added that even now it can be said that Russia suffered 3 to 4 times more losses in Ukraine in 8 months than in 9 years while it was waging war in Afghanistan. Petraeus is also convinced that it will be much more difficult for Russia to wage war in winter than for Ukraine. I don't think that the Ukrainian troops will reduce their operational offensive with the onset of winter. The logistics of the Russians is very weak, the bridges are destroyed, as well as the railway tracks, as on the Crimean Bridge, he said. The Russians have a lot of problems. Winter is coming. They don't even have enough warm clothes, not to mention weapons, the general emphasized. Petraeus noted that the morale of the Russian army was very low. They don't understand what they are fighting for. Mostly at the front are representatives of national minorities who were thrown into the line of confrontation, he said. Petraeus also added that the speed of the Ukrainian offensive will depend in part on how this campaign is planned and executed. As reported, the head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense, Kirill Budanov, expressed the opinion that the war with the Russian occupiers should be completed by summer.